And I was reading that recently. The band posted on Facebook something ironically saying, "Hey, thanks everyone who's trying to take credit for getting us back together." I'd like to ask you guys, what was the real driving force that made you guys come back together again?
Actually, it had a lot to do with Paul Tollett of Coachella.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he started talking about it. It seemed real. So at that point, I just, told my people that they could go ahead and start talking to people and see what's going on. And then as it became more real, then I text Fernando and asked for Slash's number, and then Fernando texts his mom and is like, "If this is a joke, I'm gonna kill you."
But when you guys signed up for Coachella, did you think at the time it was going to be a one-off kind of thing, and then only later it developed into a full tour?
No, it started with talking about Coachella, but at the same time that those talks were starting, there were people involved with Coachella, agencies and things. So they were having these conversations about what they could possibly do or not. So it was all being considered.
So both of you already had it in mind that, well, this might end up turning into a full-blown tour.
We started talking like in the spring, yeah. I mean, but it's like everybody's people were finding out about possibilities and things like that, and then we started talking together in the spring and stuff.
Yeah, I've heard. Go ahead.
It was just, and getting into rehearsals, it was really just kind of like one day at a time. I don't know that I thought too much about how far ahead. It was just really cool to play some of that music with the guys I was playing it with.
Hey everybody, what's going on, and welcome to GNR Central. And in today's video I want to talk about the guy who reunited Guns N' Roses and how he basically went about reuniting the band after they'd been offered hundreds of $millions for the last 20 years to reunite. So what did Paul Tollett do that was different from a lot of other promoters out there and managers who failed to reunite Guns N' Roses in the past? So the first question you guys have to ask is, who is this Paul Tollett guy? Well, he's the founder of Golden Voice, which is the company that holds Coachella every single year. And he's a pretty press-shy person. He doesn't give a lot of interviews, but around the time of 2016's Coachella, when Guns N' Roses performed, he talked a bit about how he went about approaching the band to get back together. And then in the subsequent years, he talked a bit more about Guns N' Roses. And he actually has a long history with the band, dating back all the way before Appetite for Destruction came out. So Paul Tollett's history with Guns N' Roses goes back almost 30 years ago, or 33 years ago now if you're counting from 2019. So Guns N' Roses opened for Johnny Thunders, who was a big hero of Duff McKagan's, and they played at the Fenders Ballroom in Long Beach. And it was actually Paul Tollett who was the promoter who promoted that show. So back in that day, Paul Tollett really promoted a lot of like lesser known bands or up and coming bands. And he said they were our go-to band anytime we had anything rock related, because we were mostly doing punk rock at the time. So we've had a relationship all these years, but we wanted to make sure everyone in their camp believed in Coachella, because there's a lot of opportunity if a band is going to get back together. So Tollett has another important relationship with the guys from Guns N' Roses, or an important connection, I should say. So he shares a personal attorney, the same personal attorney that Slash has, and he's also worked with Guns N' Roses booking agent for almost 30 years. Now, that plus his professional relationship with them as a promoter gave him an inside track to sign them for Coachella. So the next thing he had to do is figure out who he had to talk to. So discussions with Guns N' Roses really started around 2013 or 2014 to have them play Coachella. So he said, I made a list of 10 people I needed to get on our side to make this happen, and just work through the list. He also said that some I'm really close to and some I'm not really close to at all, and some I don't know, and then the band members, so I had to work through all of that. Now, even around the time that the discussions with Guns N' Roses started happening, Slash made a guest appearance at Coachella back in 2014 with Motorhead. And Tollett said that Slash got a taste of Coachella's festival atmosphere, and the seeds were starting to be planted to get a Guns N' Roses reunion in the works. So Tollett went on to explain that at some point along the way when discussions with Guns N' Roses began, he sent the group a vintage flyer of the 1986 performance he promoted for the band shortly before the band hit it big with Appetite for Destruction. So Tollett also said he never led with a dollar figure when it came to talking to people. He said, "Oh no, if you lead with that, you will always be shut down. An artist doesn't want to feel like they're just a piece of meat or they're just that. Plus, as much as Coachella can pay, there's always someone who can offer more, and it can never be the money. I actually think the youth side of the show really sells a lot to some of these artists, and let's get the new generation, the cutting edge people." Now, one thing that was rumored around the time that Guns N' Roses were playing Coachella was that how much they were actually being paid. So it was rumored that they were being paid about $3 million per show. Another source claimed that they were being paid about $7 million per weekend that they played, for a total of $14 million. But the Golden Voice vice president Skip Page scoffed at that rumor, saying do the math. So with 170 bands booked and the total gross from the previous year's festival eclipsing $84 million, excluding the sponsorship deals, it's not inconceivable that GNR might be getting $5 million total from Golden Voice for their appearance. Now, even though Coachella started talking to Guns N' Roses even before 2015, Axl and Slash didn't start talking until around March of 2015 for the first time. So here's a discussion that Slash had with Nikki Sixx about a year or two ago, talking about the first conversations he had with Axl and the reunion tour.
GNR, you want to talk about like how it felt?
Well, we can talk about,
road?
I mean, yeah, we can talk about, I mean, all things considered, the tour, you know, what ended up being not in this lifetime kind of thing, you know, I left in 96 and Axe and I didn't talk until 2015.
So I kind of wanted a little bit, I feel like I have some similarities because like when Motley broke up, we're not friends. And it left a little hole in my heart.
Yeah.
It was like, wow.
Well, there was always that thing, and I won't get into all the personal stuff.
Yeah, we don't want to get into that anyway.
But, you know, over that period of time, there was, you know, there was a lot of bad feelings from the breakup up until all throughout that whole 20 years or whatever it was.
That crazy 20 years.
But there's also a part of you that's like in a marriage where you love somebody, and you know, so there's always that feeling, but then there's all this negative stuff, and
sure,
and
which by the way comes from a lot of other people.
There was so much stuff perpetuated in the media, and it was just blown out of proportion. So when he and I talked for the first time, it was really, really cool.
Was it in person?
Yeah, it was. Well, no, first time we spoke, it was on the phone, and then we got together when I got back into town because I was on the road. I was in Peru. I remember it specifically, but it was very cathartic to
I can see that
physically talk, because I mean, there's a bond that you have that's never, you know,
for sure.
And then it makes the breakup. I mean, what happens is the bond makes the negative side of it that much worse because you're forced out of it, you know. Anyway, so when we got together and played, it was Coachella. It was just fucking awesome, and we played the Troubadour. Was the first gig that we did, and so and it just snowballed from there. So it was 18 months, and it's been. I mean, I would never, you know, if you had talked to me 20 months ago, I would have said no fucking way. It's never going to happen, but it did, and it was fucking awesome.
And it happened at the right time. You know, if there was the right time, people were ready. It's obviously you're seeing it in ticket sales and enthusiasm from fans and the different generations.
Yeah,
that's the cool thing about being gone as long as the band was gone. The original band is that people discover you, but never have ever could ever see you.
There was a lot of
there's like this is our chance, and that's fantastic, and I'm sure it just made everything feel that much better. It must have been like kind of weird, like look over and there's like Duff and Axl, and you're like, I didn't think this would ever happen.
Yeah,
and
many
then you
times,
break into some riff.
It was very surreal.
I bet.
You know, these moments on stage where you sort of take stock of where you are at the moment and go, wow, this is a trip.
Yeah, look at this. Like it's a sold out stadium,
and the funny
there's
thing
my
about
guys that when we were kids.
But there was something about this particular tour that didn't take me back to the, you know, the last tour in the 90s where it's like reminiscent of that. It was completely uniquely its own new thing. Same guys, same songs, but a whole different experience.
Now, the first hint that we got that something was going to be going on was back in August of 2015. Slash gave an interview when he was out with the Conspirators at the tail end of the World on Fire tour, and he revealed that him and Axel are friends again. So he was speaking to a Swedish television station where he showed up to jam with Graveyard as part of the promotion for the new Marshall London phone. And as you can see in the article, Slash was a bit uncertain about how to properly frame the news. He said it was probably way overdue, referring to his relationship with Axel and being on speaking terms. He said, but it's very cool at this point, to let some of that sort of negative energy dispel. And that was basically stuff that was going on for so long. Now, at that point, he hadn't performed with Guns N' Roses since 1993 when they ended their Use Your Illusion tour in Argentina. Now, probably one of the most revealing interviews that Slash has done since the Guns N' Roses reunion happened was with Rolling Stone magazine back in the summer of 2018. So Guns N' Roses were playing the Download Festival in England, and even though he hadn't started doing press that much for the Conspirators stuff, he was already talking about the Conspirators record, Living the Dream. But he also used that as an opportunity to talk a bit about Guns N' Roses. And one of the most revealing things from that interview was that Coachella and the Troubadour and the Vegas shows were really the only original shows planned as far as the Guns N' Roses reunion was concerned. They weren't originally planning on doing this huge stadium tour and doing a 2.5-year world tour. But those kind of lit the fuse, and they really enjoyed playing with each other on stage again. And from there, they decided we should do more dates. He was also asked by the interviewer what his first conversations with Axl were like after 20 years, and he said, yeah, I know everybody wants to ask me stuff like that, but in the Guns N' Roses world, I found that I'd just rather not get into it, because at this point, it's like Guns N' Roses is, and that's basically all that really needs to be said. I don't like to get into the dynamics of how, because it always gets misconstrued, and the superficial stuff that people want to look into, it always seems to rise to the surface, and it's basically a hard way to get away from that after years and years of being the band that kind of had a media dynamic going on. So I just sort of avoid it. To which the interviewer said, I mean, obviously you don't want to say anything to knock it off course. To which Slash said, of course, I'm not worried about effing it up. I just don't think there's really any information that is necessarily important. The fun of this has been playing and not talking to the press, and it's been great. There's really nothing. It's been something that I definitely wouldn't have bet against. I would have bet against. Having Axl and I back together and sort of work out our differences and start moving forward was sort of a shock, and it's been really a wonderful experience, and I've been having a really great time with it, and everybody's getting along great, and the effing fans have been amazing, and it's just sort of a blessing to have it go that way, because especially for a band that's been around or not around, depending on who you ask, all the different lineup changes and all that different kinds of stuff for so long. So it's been really nice to be riding the wave. And that was something that was really unique about this reunion tour, is that they really didn't do much press, if any press. And we only really start to see a few interviews along the way. The Brazilian Global interview you guys saw at the beginning. And then Axl did a couple of interviews here and there. And then towards the end of the tour, Slash started to do interviews because he had to promote the Conspirators record. So that does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. And go check out GNRCentral.com for the latest Guns N' Roses news. Take care.
Hey, this is Dizzy Reed from Guns N' Roses, and you're watching GNR Central. Yeah!